Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to those who are joining us on the CrowCast this evening. Welcome to the weekend wrap. And to all those joining us, you're dyed in the wool, you're rusted on, and we appreciate your company because, my God, Macca, that was a heap of shit.
Oh, wasn't that good? If we improved, we could be a heap of shit.
Oh, mate, I swear to God, that's one of the worst performances we've put together for a while, particularly in the midfield. It was not a lot to get excited about.
We have to be realistic who we were playing too. We're playing the Bulldogs, who you would say at best middle of the road.
Yep.
And they have a very good midfield, a very classy midfield.
Yep.
But they don't have a lot else. And I mean, their midfield make their forwards eventually get some score, and they're not normally a high scoring team.
No.
And their back line, well, it's a reasonable back line, but it's not a starry back line. So it really boils around the midfield, and we got absolutely slaughtered.
Oh,
and
we got pummeled.
The coach said that he was asked, did we attempt to tag Bontempelli? And he said, we did at times. And then what does at times mean?
Well, it just means that other times, like when the game was going, we didn't. I think we tagged him coming out of the race. I think we might have tagged him walking off the ground. But aside from that, we didn't get fucking near him, mate.
Well, no, he just looked like he was in the forward lines, in the back lines, he was in the middle. He just did whatever he liked. And and young Bailey Smith, who I've been pumping his tyres up, and he showed today how good he is. I think he had about 37 or 38 disposals himself. So it just really shows how much we did get slaughtered in there.
And look, the thing of it is, Macca, it wasn't an inexperienced midfield. We had Matty Crouch in there for a lot of the time. We had Rory Sloane in there for a lot of the time. We had, Benny Keys, who's been in really good form. Lairdy's been in there, who's also been in good form. And they got absolutely torched. Absolutely torched. So we're not talking about kids. And in fact, the only kid that was in there for a lot of the time was Schoenberg. And to be honest with you, he wasn't our worst midfielder, mate.
He did really good. He's probably one of the bright points that I was going to say. There's probably maybe 3 or 4 highlights out of the game. Highlights, good points. I thought he was one of them actually.
Yeah. And look, the thing of it is that Schoenberg at the moment should be playing at cameo. He should be picking up his 10 to 12 and showing us signs. We're not relying on him to carry a bloody midfield, for God's sakes. And I thought Sloane was terribly disappointing, Rory Sloane. Matt Crouch got a bit of the ball, but I'll tell you what, Bontempelli was running off Matt Crouch and Rory Sloane all day long. And the reason Bontempelli was clear so often was the inability of those two to bloody pick him up on transition, let alone the centre clearances.
Well, they can't run as fast as him for a start.
But it wasn't only that, Macca, it was positioning, defensive positioning. They were caught ball watching, they were caught ahead of the ball. If someone's toweling you up, even if the coach doesn't send a runner out, surely as an experienced footballer, you go, shit, we better just, man up on this bloke. At least around the ground. But he didn't even, I don't think he would have realised that the Crows were playing.
Well, the interesting thing is that, again, listening to Nixon, I thought it was one of the most depressing interviews I've heard from a coach, because I'm looking at a guy that looks like he's just been bashed up. And he's trying to find a nice point. He's trying to find a good point. He's trying to find something. And, I just think, I don't know whether he can coach or not. I've got to preface it with that. He might be good, he might be bad, but you can't really judge him on what he's been given. He's been given a shit team, and he's been given a shit assistant coaches.
Yeah,
and he's really
it's a sandwich full of shit, basically, that he's been handed. And I guess the only thing that he's really finding out is that our experienced players are no longer capable of carrying this team through. too many of them. It wasn't an inexperienced team, and I will go through this in a little bit more detail in a minute, Mac, but we didn't field an inexperienced side this week. We had a few kids in, but we didn't field an experienced side, and Western Bulldogs had no right to absolutely slaughter us around the contest the way that they did. And yet they did. So I think what Matty Nix has probably learnt, and I think it's been evident for a month, is that our senior players have played on one, maybe 2 seasons too long, and they cannot be relied upon to provide a smooth transition for our young kids coming through. And it's going to be a baptism of fire for our young kids. It's a shame, but that's the way it is.
Well, sadly, that's true. If you take Rory Sloane, I think he's got another, is it 3 years left on his contract? He's either got another 2 or 3 years on his contract after this year.
Yeah.
And, with all due respect, and we all love Rory, but, he's not playing up to Rory's standards, and maybe it's injury that's curtailed him and reduced him to this level. But, as you said, he's one of the senior players that's been letting us down. Taylor Walker, he's got as I understand, he's got another year on his contract worth about $750,000 after this end of this year. And look, really, he should be retired. But if I was on a contract for another year for $750,000, you want to put me in the Bs, that's fine. I'll take $750 and stay on.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, there's so many things that are wrong, and one of them is just the length of contracts for some of the blokes that are still in the side. And Tex, Sloane, you mentioned, there's a few others. Sloane's got 3 years to run, as you said, and it's just like, I don't see Sloaney giving us any value during that time.
Well, it's certainly going to be on very reduced value. Now, maybe he might come out next year when we can train properly and have, that comes back to another thing that's wrong with the club. We've got Matt Haas, which is Haas, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Does it rhyme with ass, does it?
Very well done. Very well done.
And so does his fitness, because we're very unfit. Seriously, we are unfit. And that's another thing I was talking about that Nix has been handed. He's been, not only are they perhaps lacking in ability, but they're lacking in fitness incredibly. Yeah. And that's shown by the fact that we can put up reasonable first half in most games,
and
then
we're done.
Disappear. Yeah.
Now, Macca, before we continue, Macca, and you probably don't have the video up on your screen here, but
no, I don't. No.
I just want to. I saw something on Facebook this afternoon, and I think we might have solved your letterbox problem, because a young lady in the Aberfoyle Park community group has posted, has anyone had a letterbox stolen? It's sitting on the footpath at the baggy shops across from me. And it's a nice cement number, and it looks like a stylish thing that you'd be able to stick in front. And I'm just wondering, Macca, after all these years, have we finally found your letterbox?
Well, it looks like Burton must have thought that it was closing in on him and he's dumped it. I shouldn't say that, but I suspect he did it.
Yeah, anyway, look, I just thought I'd post that just in case it was yours, mate, because, it concerns me. That
it still was a shock to me, that. In the middle of a car too.
Oh, shit. Anyway, look, let's get on to some stats, Sally, and we'll talk about the weekend results first of all, and we'll try to keep up with where the hell we actually are. Now, my stats machine played about as well as the Crows did this week, so we're going to rely on AFL.com. Thanks, AFL.com, and where I'm also still trying to work out a copyright situation with them with the video, so there's no video again tonight, but we'll try and be as descriptive as possible. Thursday night, Macca, Gold Coast v Bulldogs, so, what the hell? That's the 25th of bloody...
No, that's not there.
No, that's better. Here we go. Thursday, August the 13th, that's better. Swannies absolutely toweling up GWS. So what's going on with GWS? 10-6-66 to GWS 3-7-25, and I don't know what to make of GWS. I thought they were coming on a bit, but they've stalled.
Well, at the beginning of the year, you and I both thought they'd be dead certain to be around a grand final time, and
Yes.
I and I was one of the biggest ones to pump up their tyres, but I've certainly jumped off. And one of the reasons for that particular result was the fact that Sydney played with great intensity, and GWS were exactly the opposite. It's a case, I think, that GWS seem to think that talent will get them through. That doesn't work out that way. It doesn't work out that way. And I think a much less talented team beat a more talented team through sheer intensity. And also, they're young blokes quite well as well. So,
and Sydney can do that to you when they're on song. They it's that whole culture thing. But when they're switched on, irrespective of their personnel, they can put you to the sword. And it was a very good performance by Sydney. Geelong, I'm almost prepared, Macca, to install as premiership favourites at the moment. They absolutely destroyed Port by 10 goals, if you don't mind. 14-7-91 to Port 4-7-31. A margin there, as I said, of 60 points on the Friday night. Port everything to play for and just got slaughtered.
Well, I was always a Geelong doubter, and I think most people were. But after that particular game, you have to really consider the fact that, they're in the premiership race. And if they could reproduce that in a final, say against Port or West Coast, or Brisbane, whoever they're playing against, that'd be a big show. So, they're back in the race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Looked really, really good, Port Adelaide, and Geelong and Port, with a few questions to answer. But to be perfectly honest with you, I just think they got beaten by a far better side.
Well, they did, and it also exposed Port's weaknesses in the sense that they traded off Dougal Howard. I always remember he's got two Christian names, and someone get it back to front. Dougal Howard, and he's a tall defender, and he would be the type of bloke that was necessary to play back there because they was just getting outmarked by just non-stop, by the full forward.
Yep. On Saturday, North and Brisbane played a very entertaining game. Brisbane getting up by a point, not overly convincing. North in not great form, 7-11-53. Brisbane 2, North 8-4-52. A margin, as I said, of 1 point, but Brisbane hanging in there at the moment.
I think the embarrassing thing for us as a football club is the fact that North Melbourne, they threw out a heap of experienced players who've been regular players and threw in a heap of young players who aren't normally playing. And this is the result they got. They could have easily won that game.
Yes, exactly right. Never mind. Melbourne, Collingwood in a little bit of strife with just a big injury count at the moment. Melbourne 16-4-100 out of the blue against Collingwood 6-8-48. The other thing I think, Macca, playing into results such as this is just how teams are managing the short turnarounds, and I think Collingwood have been a bit of a victim of the compressed fixture and are suffering at the moment.
Yes, but having said that, Melbourne have got a very good midfield firing at the moment as well, though. I had a couple of bets on the weekend and on the footy, and Melbourne was one of them. I was pretty sure that they would beat Collingwood because when we played against Collingwood, I thought Collingwood were very, very ordinary. Very ordinary.
Yeah. Now, look, J-Mac mentions that it's awfully quiet in the chat. And I'll just remind people, if you want to chat with us, the Discord is available if you're on Discord. And even if you're not, just go to our website, go to the live chat section, a little demo on the screen there. You can listen to us while you chat. You can hook straight into the Discord chat and get amongst it. There's a few of us in there tonight, but I have a feeling the season is starting to take its toll a bit, Macca.
It's taking its toll
on our rusted on, and so we've got some people watching us on Facebook and YouTube. So g'day to those people. Also on Twitch, a couple. So you can chat along with us on those platforms as well. But if you're listening to the audio, get amongst it. Get onto our website and hook in. It's very easy to do. Head down to the live chat and away you go. Now, Macca, what do you think of the Carlton debacle? Did Carlton get up by 4 points? I thought Freo were very stiff.
Well, it's been said many times that one day an umpire umpiring mistakes will cost a team a grand final. This wasn't a grand final, but it certainly umpiring mistakes cost them the match. Because Carlton should have won the game. It was Freo's game. That particular incident, well, yes, he did sort of tap the ball out of bounds for the original free kick, but that was done about 27 or 30 times in a game and without a free kick being played.
Exactly.
Then the downfield, well, there's no doubt that Brayshaw did not try to jump into him. He sort of, maybe he didn't pull up in time, but it wasn't a very powerful blow. And I've seen probably 50 to 75% of those not paid.
Yep.
And then the rules also state that if a downfield free, if the ball goes out of bounds, it comes back to the bloke that defended again.
Exactly.
So firstly, that shot for goal should never have taken place.
Exactly, Macca, that's what I thought.
Then we moved out of that particular site,
and
it was Gibbons who should have been taking the ball because he was the bloke that was nearest. And knowing the way that boy kicks the ball, I doubt what he would have made the distance, and I certainly wouldn't have backed him to kick the goal.
No, that's right.
What they did, they got a bloke who had a beautiful leg on him, and he did kick the goal, and so they win the game. So on many counts,
slotting the goal, but I'm 100% with you on all of those points, Mac. 100%.
Yeah, well, it's just an interest. That's one of those cases. It just shouldn't have happened. It'll be interesting to see whether the AFL acknowledge it all and whether they do something about the umpire. But
don't be silly.
That's a dream, isn't it?
Don't be silly. Play on. St Kilda continuing along nicely. 10-8-68 to Essendon 5-3-33. I didn't watch this one, did you?
I believe this is a true story. I was watching the first half and I thought, this is shit. I mean, Essendon are rubbish. So I went out and did some pruning outside and sit in the garden.
Pruning.
Yeah, I've got beautiful hydrangeas. I've got 3 beautiful hydrangea plants, so that pruning them.
Very nice. And at the moment, West Coast are beating Hawthorn quite comfortably, 12-8-80 to Hawthorn 7-7-49, with probably about 5 or 6 minutes left. So it looks like West
started
Coast
to watch it, and then again got bored, and you could see it was going to be one-sided. So I started getting on Twitter and starting to abuse
Of course, one match to go in round 12. That's Richmond over the Suns at the Gabba. Suns a sneaky one here, I reckon. They're due, Gold Coast. They're due for one, I reckon.
Yeah, people think saying, on form you'd say Richmond on recent form, I think you'd say, but no, I reckon it's a 50-50 game.
Yeah. They've been around the mark, Gold Coast, and I reckon they're building, and their youngsters are going really well at the moment.
Certainly show more intensity than we do.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Adelaide game, and the score was 16-15, 1-1-1 Western Bulldogs to the Adelaide Crows 8-6-54. The scoreline probably flattering us in the end with a couple of late ones, but the Bulldogs getting up by 10 goals, 57 points. And as we mentioned, Macca, it looked dangerous at the start, and then we kind of pegged them back, but I felt we pegged them back against the flow without really looking convincing. So I was still very concerned at quarter time, and we kind of hung around until half time, but after half time it was just a procession.
One of those goals in the first quarter was a classic goal where we actually moved it from they scored a point and we moved it all the way down the ground with absolutely beautiful football, which we'd love to see a replica of, which we won't. It was the only one for the day, but it was beautiful football culminating in a goal. And look, I know if that's what Nick wants us to do and we can do it, it's great, but we only saw it once for the day.
Yeah. Look, let's go through some head-to-head, shall we?
Yep.
That kick count. Western Bulldogs, 201 kicks to Adelaide 133, 172 handballs to 119. That's 373 disposals to 252. 119, there's that number again, 119 disposal disparity in a shortened game of football.
Well, it's massive, isn't it?
Oh my God.
It's
unbelievable.
But if you go back and so I saw that on Twitter, somebody posted that, and they also did that, posted discrepancy for about the last 3 or 4 games.
Yep.
They're massive. They're massive.
It's a wonder we only lost by 10 goals, to be honest with you. Mark 78 to 50, tackles 54 to 40, even though we never had the ball. Just on the tackles, Macca, it was one of the things that I felt contributed to their dominance around stoppage was their body size. And contributing to our low tackle count was the amount of times that our tackle technique was poor, but we simply didn't have the strength to stick those tackles, whereas Western Bulldogs tackling was not only intense, but it was also technically very, very good.
Yeah, you got to really wrap them up. You just can't try and tackle with one arm or just with your hands. You got to do the whole arm bit.
Well, you got to get your shoulder into it, don't you? And you stick an arm out, it's going to get brushed off. But they had the ability to brush our tackles, and yet when they tackled, they'd take an arm, they'd bring us to ground. It was very noticeable for mine. Hit-outs 45 to 20 in our favour. Now, a lot of people criticising Riley O'Brien for not being able to tap the ball down someone's throat. But, Macca, I wonder if you'll agree with me on this, because I felt that our midfield were very, very reactive and were not reading the bounce and the likely areas that Riley was going to hit it as a result of where the bounce went.
Hard to say, really. We didn't get it enough. That's for certain. I thought Riley O'Brien was very good. Actually, I thought he was one of our bright points for the day. And in terms of effort, I think probably if everybody modelled themselves on him in terms of effort, we wouldn't get beaten.
Yeah,
but he's 100% plus. Yeah. And no, I won't disagree with what you're saying, but I just think that they have blokes like Jack McRae who he can get a ball off of anybody. Young Smith, who's going to be an absolute star. We've got a couple of others here.
But I just felt like
Bont, of course. Yeah,
Bont. Yeah, I just felt like our midfielders were speculating. You can usually tell if you know your ruckman, which they should do by now. You can usually tell based on where the ball is bounced and how the angle that it flies up, because it's really dead straight. You can usually tell what areas the ruckman is going to hit it. He'll favour certain areas, and then based on where the ball is, you run to those areas. Whereas I felt like our midfielders went to where they wanted the ball to go, instead of where it was actually going to go. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do understand what you mean. Whereas, as J-Mac quite correctly says in the chat, that Bontempelli, he read O'Brien's stats very well indeed.
Oh, yeah, all day. I mean, if, our blokes wanted to get a clearance, all they had to do was follow Bontempelli around. But that was the point. I just felt like our midfielders were lazy because they went to where they wanted Riley to hit it, instead of where he could hit it or was likely to hit it. And as a consequence, it just opened up. And I've enjoyed the fact that we haven't been playing man-on-man over the last 3 or 4 games. That's been a positive in my opinion. But if you're going to play that loose style of centre setup, then you've got to actively read the play. And I just felt like we were lazy because we weren't prepared to actually get into the right positions.
Well, I was really disappointed with Led, and as a midfielder, I was watching where he's standing. I thought he's never going to be involved in the play where he's standing.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. It looked like, it just looked like they'd practiced during the week. Right, Riley, you're going to hit it there, and there, which is all well and good when the ball's going straight up in the air and the opposition ruckman is a tackle bag, but Yes. But that's not reality, and the reality is you've got to be able to read the flight. You've got to be able to look at the hand, like the angle of where he's coming in from, and you've got to think, all right, well, he usually hits 45 degrees to the left, or he puts it down behind. So they're the two spots relative to where the ball is, and our guys didn't seem to want to put themselves there, and I think it's doing Riley a big disservice by pinning the disparity in centre clearances on him, because you don't win the ball You don't win the hitouts 25 more times in a losing team by 60 points, and it's not your fault. Do you know what I mean? There's 3 other blokes in there, and they should have been able to work it out. And the simple fact is that I felt that they were lazy and they didn't really want to work it out.
I don't know whether it could be lazy, but I'm thinking more stupid.
Lazy, stupid.
Lacking football intelligence and where to be and what to do.
Yeah. Barney the Crab in the chat. Why the bloody hell are our players giving 5 metres off their opponent on the outside of stoppages and contested situations?
Which is one of the points I was referring to with Laird, for example.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They weren't in dangerous positions, in my opinion. And around stoppage, it was noticeable as well, as Barney points out. I don't mind. I'm actually very relieved to see that we've gone away from this body up, man-on-man situation in the centre stoppage. I don't know about you, Macca, but I think it gives us an opportunity. And over the last 3 weeks, we've seen some very good centre clearances by Benny Keys and Rory Laird and a couple of others. But you're not always going to get silver service from your ruckman, and this is, I think this is where they fell down today. They were looking for silver service from Riley instead of actively supporting him by getting to his hit zones. Yeah, but also I think they also haven't played against, I think, a midfield as strong as this, so sometimes you have to play a little bit more defensively when you're playing against real quality. That is in top form, and all their midfielders have been in top form of late. Yeah, well, and not only that, they got a fair bit of run in those centre stoppages. They got a fair bit of run off half back as well. They had blokes running through all the time, and our blokes weren't following them through, and it was just a bit of a bloody disaster, really. But anyway, let's push on. What else have we got here? Clearances 44-19.
Embarrassment.
It's embarrassing, and we'll break those down in a little moment. Rebound 50s, obviously we had a lot more because it was in there. The inside 50s, 61-32, which is obviously a pure result of our lack of giving a yelp in the middle and around stoppage. Contested possessions. We didn't even break 100 contested possessions for the game. 138 Western Bulldogs, 99 Adelaide. Uncontested possessions though, and this is where I think this was where the fitness factor showed up, Macca. 236 to 146. That's a 90 possession disparity in uncontested possessions. That's fitness pure and simple, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. It's having the ability to push yourself through the pain barrier, just to keep running to open spaces and give the opportunity to keep the ball moving quickly. And if you run to, even when you're bugging, if you run to the open spaces and give a lead, so then that creates the next one and so on. And that's what they were doing to us.
Yeah,
they were prepared to work hard, and we weren't.
Oh, 100%. We weren't prepared
and I
don't think we had it in us, to be honest.
Well, Nick's made the comment. He said, and this is what really did distress me, because if he's right, he said, no, he said, a lot of people said our players aren't trying. He said, they are. They're giving everything they got. I thought, well, fuck me. We are really rooted, to be honest. Yeah. Because if that's what they've got to give, we're in trouble.
There's trying and then there's trying, Mac. And I think Nick's is being a bit kind on a couple of players. You can't tell me that Paul Seedsman was trying today. And we'll get to individuals a little later, but he's just one. You can't tell me that Paul Seedsman was trying today. He played scared. He didn't put his body on the line at all. He didn't use any pace. He was going through the motions, in my opinion. He was not interested. Not interested today.
No, he certainly wasn't switched on. I thought he had a very poor effort.
Yeah, and it's disappointing. He's a senior player, Mac.
He's a talented player.
Well, he is a talented player, and I think he's a good player in a team where, look, I think he's got some. I think there's some use for Paul Seedsman, similar to an Isaac Smith or a Ricky Henderson.
That's a good comparison.
A Ricky Henderson. You know, Clarkson will probably forgive Ricky Henderson for not going hard, although I felt Henderson, since he's moved to Hawthorn, has straight lined the ball a bit more than what he used to at Adelaide.
Toughened up compared to what we had.
Yeah, but their main weapons are their run through the line and their ability to kick the ball line into the forward 50. And Paul Seedsman, I think, for us, has that value playing off a wing. But in a team where we're struggling and we're getting killed on the inside and on ground ball and all the rest of it, it really exposes a bloke like Seedsman if his mind's not on the job, because he just will not put his body in. And I felt like he played soft today, Seedsman. I really do.
He did. I agree.
What else is there? Effective disposals, 280 to 180. Clangers were about even. Contested marks, not 10 to 5. Marks inside 50, 17 to 3. If you don't mind, that's what you call silver service from your midfield. And you know, it wasn't just the last couple of times we've been beaten in centre clearances, Mac. We've done a right in stoppage. But this week we got towed in both 19-6 in centre clearances and 25 to 13 in stoppage. So, you know, it was just a complete breakdown of the ruck system and setup.
Well, yeah, I still think it goes back to the quality of their midfield against the quality of our midfield, and I still think that the best our midfield could have and probably should have done for the day is being really intense and making sure they didn't get the ball. Would have been happy scrimmage after scrimmage after scrimmage.
Yeah. So look, really, I mean, every other stat in my opinion, stems from that midfield dominance, both at centre and around the contest. We let them get outside too easily, and we didn't set up well defensively. And really, I mean, we're chasing Guernseys all day, chasing Bulldogs all day, and you know, there are a couple of poor efforts down back, and our forward 50 is still a bit of a concern. But Nix has got to sort this midfield out. He's got to sort it out, because right now it's failing.
Oh, definitely failing. Failing.
It's been failing for a month, 6 weeks, all season, really.
I don't see any answers though, Fane. That's the problem.
Well, it's probably personnel to a large degree, but that's the disappointing part, Macca, because for a lot of those rotations we had Sloan, we had Matt Crouch. You know, these are experienced guys. Matt Crouch is a best and fairest winner. Rory Sloan is a captain of the club. These are experienced men who have played against Bontempelli and the like for the last God knows how many seasons. This wasn't anything new. Western Bulldogs' intensity in the contest shouldn't have been anything new to any of our experienced players. You know, it's not rocket science. And yet, these blokes were ineffective. They were absolutely ineffective. They did nothing to try and stop the Western Bulldogs' flow all game, and they got made to look second rate, and they ought to be embarrassed.
I think I really think we've got 5 more games to play for the season, Fiend, and I think we're going to get this basically for the next 5 as well, because we keep losing good players through to injury. That's the first thing. Yeah. Seems like anybody that can get a kick gets hurt. Yeah. And then on top of that, what the players that we feel, there's not very many of them that can ever walk off the ground with their head held up high.
No.
And then you look at what the coach has got to coach them with. When you got Benny Hart and what's his name, Godden, and then on top of it, and then you got the fitness coach, who I think has done a very poor job in turning these players out. So I don't think he's got any weapons. That's the problem. I think
none whatsoever. None.
And the poor goose has to line up after every game, and I don't. What do you say?
Polish a turd, basically, is what he has to do. Well, I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Well, you can't even polish it. You just scrape a bit of the roughness off.
By intimate knowledge of the texture of a turd there, Mac. No, but you're right. He's got nothing. And look, it wouldn't actually surprise me if the Adelaide Crows have written this season off. To some degree, I feel like the whole club is in reset mode, and I think they're trying to minimise expenditure during this reset mode. I mean, there's no reason.
Right. Yeah, right.
There's no reason for us to have a skeleton crew as a coaching panel this year. The other clubs have got essentially their normal coaching panel, and probably dropped off some support people, but we're a shell. We don't have Mick Godden's the only one that's hung around, and I'm sure he's taken a pay cut to be there. We're an absolute shell, and I think from a fitness perspective, I think we've had to do a reset because we've previously overloaded our players, and it was very sad to see Andy McPherson go down with a hammy again. But we lost Hamill and we lost Duday, and I think had we not lost those two players, I think McPherson would have been, well, he was definitely due a rest, because you must have thought that McPherson, with his hamstrings, he just needed to be managed a little bit more with this condensed schedule.
He actually had a rest the match before this one.
Yeah, but it's only 5 days.
I know, and that is the problem. That it's really just not having a rest. It's like playing normal week after week.
Yeah, and hindsight's a beautiful thing. I don't blame the club for picking Andy McPherson. I think their hand was pretty much forced because of those outs, and I think Jake Kelly showed that he's nothing more than a depth player in that defence, because my goodness me, we'll talk about him in a little while, but he was woeful.
I wouldn't even put him in as a depth player. I mean, I've half defended him in the past, but by God, has he lost me now? He's really lost me. He
looked like a player sadly out of touch. But I don't think that the schedule has helped us at all, because it has, what are you supposed to do? This season and this schedule is really designed for a team who A, is in the window.
Yep.
B, has a good fitness base. C, has good depth, and D, has a bit of luck. Now we don't have any of those things.
No, and we don't even have the basic support that the other teams have. So,
that's correct. So,
and I think you made a comment earlier that you said that you think that the club has written this season off. I've no doubt they've written this season off, and I've got no doubt there's many factors in play here. One of the factors in play is the fact that they've had to pay out the coach. They've had to pay out Burton, and God knows who else have had to pay out. And that all comes out of the soft cap, and that's why poor old coach, he's got nobody to help him really, because all the money's gone elsewhere.
Well,
so
I think
that's it. This season, I'd say he's going to get nothing, and that's the way it's going to be. And then when we start the new season, when we start the new soft year, then he will be allowed to get appropriate assistant coaches, and he might even get somebody to sit by his side, and hopefully we'll flick out Haas and Arse or whatever your name is, and get a decent fitness coach.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the only value of this year is pumping a few games into kids, but these kids are getting smashed at the moment. But it's match fitness. But that's my view as well, mate. I think it's exactly that. Off the field, it's a financial reset. On the field, I don't think they envisaged it to be such a train wreck at the beginning of the season, but certainly once the season was compromised after round one, I would certainly have thought that the club's gone, you know what, let's just pack it in for this year. So
and they may have actually even had it in mind to try and get down to pick one, so that they can hopefully get some quality, and that brings them to play the question mark against the list management team. I mean, Reid was just appointed to that position just because he was Roos manager, not based on any particular skill in that particular position. And when you look at it, if I was thinking myself today, if you go through our last 3 years, number 1 and 2 draft picks, I don't think any of them are playing today.
So who's that? Sorry.
Apart from the fact of the Mackesy, who's really not ready for it.
Yeah.
Sorry, not leaving this year out of it.
Oh, yeah, we chase
we did
out,
have
net
a
out.
numbers 1 and 2 in there.
No.
But if you go back to the 3 years before that, I don't think any of our number 1 and 2 picked for playing.
Chase out, McHenry out, Duday out, Miller out, Fogarty out.
Yep.
That's probably about it. Yeah, so you're right.
Yeah. So where the other teams by now you saw young Smith. This is his second year of AFL football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, it makes a hell of a difference, Mac. It really does. And I think the best we can hope for is just to get out of the season alive and hit the draft. And their draft strategy and their trading strategy at the end of the season is going to be very, very, very interesting. And, of course, we'll be all over it, won't we, Macca? Let's look at some individual players.
I've got to say one thing on that, just before we move on. Matt Rendell, there's big rumours that he might be around the place pretty soon in that situation in terms of list management.
Well, he got cut by Collingwood, of course. And
he did. But I mean, we got cut from us, that was very unfair. I thought what happened to him there.
Well, that was a stitch up, absolutely a stitch up.
So unfair.
Yeah, but look, he's no longer on the Collingwood. He's no longer on the Collingwood staff.
No, and Barm, as I said last week, is not, or the week before, is not on Richmond's anymore either.
No, and mate, it's one of those. Oh, what's going on here? It's one of those situations. Apologies for people if that just hitched up a little bit. It's one of those situations where there are opportunities and there are personnel around. A matter. Look, I was talking to a guy that I work with. Macca has worked with some Aussie rules football team. He's originally from England. He was a successful long distance runner. He's now has his own personal training business, and he's actually worked with North Adelaide and another SANFL team that I forget, as well as some individuals. And his comment, he's a Port man, so I don't like him terribly much, but his comment was if he was the Adelaide Crows staff, he'd be already running them through a pre-season fitness program, starting from now.
Yeah, that's not silly. That's not silly.
No, because there's no doubt that we started behind the 8 ball at the beginning of the season. We've got a lot of conditioning to put into these kids. They just look so far behind it. Obviously, the season is lost, so you may as well start a lengthened pre-season to try and catch up fitness and physical development-wise to at least make some inroads next season, and also to give these young kids a bit more of a chance physically to be able to put their best foot forward.
Well, that's certainly not happening at the moment, and no. Fitness base is very poor. Having said that, I did like the young lad. How do you pronounce it? Schoenfeld?
Schomburg.
Schomburg. Sorry. I think it was Seinfeld there for a minute. I think that kid's got it.
Oh yeah, DSG in the chat says tapering for finals. Yeah, we're tapering for finals in 2024. DSG. It's the longest taper in bloody sports history. Let's look at some individual stats. And as I mentioned at the outset, Matty Crouch had 27, 12 and 15, 3 marks, 3 tackles, 15 contested possessions. So a little bit more inside this week from Matt, but only 1 centre clearance to go along with 5 stoppage clearances. And I felt like, among a couple of others, Western Bulldogs midfield ran off him all day.
Yep.
Bennett Keys, I thought, tried hard, but probably wasn't as effective as in previous weeks. 14 and 9 for 23 posies, 4 marks, 2 tackles. I'll give him a great big tick. He busts his guts. He really does. Yeah. No doubt about that. But I just felt like he wasn't as effective, if you know.
Yeah, but I like this one. I can remember one situation where he was really belted down to the ground. He was hurting, And the ball came along, and he was the next person. He got up straight away, and he was the person that got the ball when it came down there again.
Oh, he's a tough nut, no question about that, no question. Brodie Smith, 14 and 4 for 18, took 4 marks, 3 inside 50s, 5 rebound 50s. Only went at 66% disposal efficiency, a couple of turnovers, but had a couple of score involvements as well. Just another bit of a game from Brodie. I think he's another one that benefits from a strong midfield to distribute. I think his strength along with Seedsman. And look, when we were playing really well, we had Seedsman and Smith running off those halfback lines, Mac, and we could use their strengths and use their laser kicks and their run. And I think Brodie's had his time running through the midfield. It hasn't really worked, and he just is a wing come halfback flanker.
Yeah, when we go to the draft, we I know that they're really in. Is it Tilthorpe or whatever his name is? That
Riley Tilthorpe. Yeah.
And there is a question mark whether he really is the number one or not. But
I don't think he is.
Our number one requirement is to get the very best midfielder in the land. That's what they have to get.
Look, I've seen a bit of Riley Tilthorpe, and yes, he is playing against men, but I don't think he's worth our first pick or our second pick, to be honest. I think Riley might go late first round, early second at best.
I think it might be the GWS pick that gets him.
Looking at the moment, mate, it's the least of our problems, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's the least of our
true.
problems. DSG in the chat asks whether we're going to get Corey back around draft time. No junior footy. Look, DSG, the whole no junior footy thing makes it a little bit difficult. And that's why, we'll cover this further down towards the end of the season, Mac, but
yeah.
I'm a little bit of a proponent for taking 2 picks and getting the hell out of the draft and trading into next year's draft. What do you think about that?
Say that again.
I would prefer this draft is such a crapshoot, and to be honest with you, apart from 1 or 2 players, it doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence, and it's not a very good draft to have a lot of first rounders. It's not the same as 2018 or 2019 draft.
No, because you haven't got revealed form.
Haven't got revealed form, and to be honest with you, those lads that are draft age this year, they've had a year out of footy. They might have been playing a bit of school footy or college footy or whatever, but essentially they've had a year out of footy. So they're going to take a year's worth of development longer than what a normal number one or a first round draft pick would take. I would take quality. There's a couple of quality players in there that would be able to get, but I wouldn't mind the Crows actually trading out of this draft and trying to really set themselves up for the 2021 draft.
I don't know. I just think our needs are just so much. And we need so much, and then we've got so many bad players, so many players. I see this probably the reverse here. I think this is where we, because we have a situation where we've got a couple of academy type picks that were linked to it, and a father-son type situation.
Maybe.
And we've got to pick one, and I'd trade Brad. See, I think the Brad Crouch situation is flexible. I think the club are quite happy to trade him if it means that he gets a contract big enough to get us a pick 2. But I reckon that if that doesn't occur, the contract isn't big enough to do that, they're not going to let him go for a second round. They'll keep him.
Yeah. A bit of, and probably rightly so, a bit of opposition in my thoughts there. Surf Soz says it's going to delay everything. I've gone through the draft a little bit, or a few of the articles on the draft, and there's a lot of not really pure midfielders in there. There's a couple. Poulter from West Torrens is actually running up the charts in a big way. There's a young lad from WA who I really like the look of. And of course there's that other lad that did his ACL, and his Ben Hollands' son, who looks a standout. But aside from that, there's a lot of halfback flankers, a lot of small forwards, a lot of half forwards, a few underdone tools, and to be honest with you, not a lot of the actual type of player that we need. And I just feel like we've got those academy guys, and we've got maybe we get Luke Edwards in as well. I don't know. I think there's a bit of scope to try and get another pick in next year's first round. To be honest with you.
And the other thing I think too, Pete, is that for years, like virtually every year, there's other teams who've had a crack at our players and successfully got them, and particularly when they're bottom sides like Carlton, they've always used the threat of the pre-season draft if we don't play ball with them and sell our players for less than they're worth. I would be absolutely shattered if the Adelaide Football Club didn't approach a pretty reasonable player, offering whatever's necessary, and like an out of contract one, and tell them that they're not going to trade for him. They want to get him in the PSD. And
won't happen, mate. Won't happen.
They'd have to be as weak as piss not to do it.
Yeah. Well, how are they going to manufacture it though?
There will be players available. Pretty half decent players available, and somebody that they think would be a real asset to our side in terms of what we're really lacking. And I'm sure that could be done, because they reckon there will be a lot of players changing clubs this year, and I would be all for that. The fact is payback time. I mean, Carlton did that last year. They got the half forward bloke from the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
In other words, they offered peanuts, so the trade couldn't be done, and then got him for nothing.
Yeah. Look, that they were lucky though, because he wanted to go to them. And he put a stupid price on his head that wasn't going to be matched, and it just fell there. Look, I don't know, Mac. I don't think we're going to have the cap space to be able to do that. We've got some big salaries still on our list. So, we might have to pay out a year of Texas contract. We've got 3 years worth of Sloan. We've got the Crouch boys if they stay, and it's going to be interesting.
And I'm still playing some of Jenkins.
We're still paying fucking Jenkins. Oh my god, and Eddie Betts as well.
I think Eddie's ends at the end of this year, I think.
Ends of this year, yeah. Anyway, that's a conversation for further down the track, but it's an interesting discussion, and I'm really interested to hear and read the various opinions on Discord. It'll be a really good discussion closer to the time, and I certainly don't say that I'm right or wrong on this one, but it's just my impression, having looked through the draft, that I don't know. Anyway, let's continue, and it's embarrassing for the Crows that the fourth highest disposal getter for the game was Riley O'Brien with 17, 5 kicks, 12 handballs, 6 marks, 38 hit-outs, 4 tackles, 11 contested possessions, 3 contested marks, 4 score involvements, 4 intercept possessions, 91% time on ground. Best on ground by the length of the Flemington Straight. I don't care what anyone says.
Or not best on ground, but best for us.
I mean, yeah, best for us. Yeah. And
there's no dispute. Yeah, there is no dispute.
Him and Keys will be line ball for the Malcolm Blight at this stage.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rory Sloane fell off a cliff a little bit this week. Only 16 touches, 7 and 9. Only 2 marks, 4 tackles, which is disappointing. Only 5 contested possessions for Rory. And only what's that? He had 5 score involvements, but only 289 metres gained. Just wasn't around it. Rory Sloane, 15 touches, wasn't around it. Harry Schoenberg, 15 touches, 1 mark, 1 inside 50, 1 rebound 50, 6 contested possessions, win 80% disposal efficiency, 4 score involvements. Macca, it's his decision making with ball in hand that I really, really like.
100% agree with you. I do like the lad. To be that cheeky against a midfield of this quality and to get those sort of numbers being, what was it, his second or third game? Third game. I mean, yeah, he was good. And he would have been in our best players. I liked his game.
He's got a very good feel for the contest, and he doesn't get flustered in traffic.
No, he doesn't.
And he's very, very creative with his disposal. He always puts the ball to the advantage of a teammate. Really like the look of him. Luke Brown, 14 touches, didn't do much up forward. Miles Paholke, I wish they gave him a little bit of a run in the middle, but I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more. But certainly did the best he could leading up. Certainly contested the...
I'd certainly give him another game. He deserves to have another game.
I think he deserves to play out the season, Miles Paholke. I really do. Because, you look down the list and you've got Lockie Murphy again only with the 8 touches. Tex Walker did bugger all. You know what I'd like to see? If they don't want to play Fogg, and I couldn't believe that they kept Tex in and dropped Fogg, but if you don't want to play Fogg, you shouldn't be playing Tex. I reckon get Benny Davis in there, leave Paholke in there as a lead up forward if you don't want to play him in the midfield, and actually hand the keys over to someone else, because I tell you what, Tex Walker, I said this 2 weeks ago, Mac, you haven't been on for a couple of weeks, but 2 weeks ago I said that Tex Walker should retire right now, and nothing that he's done since then has changed my mind.
No, I tweeted that myself about 2 weeks ago, and just said basically I'd let him play his 200 games, and then that would be it.
Well, surely that's the only reason he's getting selected at the moment. I mean,
but probably he's got another bloody year's contract. That's the whole problem.
Yeah, but he can't play next season. He just cannot play, and if he stays on the list, they cannot pick him. Because we are killing Darcy Fogarty, and we are essentially giving up a spot in our 22 every week, because Taylor, as much as he tries, and I don't ever think that Taylor doesn't try, but he's just not physically capable anymore.
No, he's not. Definitely not.
And look, I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast will agree that Tex has been the life and soul of this club for a long time, been through a lot, loves the club, etc., etc., etc. But I'm telling you right now, if Tex Walker loves the club, right, then Tex Walker needs to fall on his sword right now and call it a day. I'm quite happy for him to get to 200 because it gives him life membership or whatever. That's fine.
Yeah,
whatever.
AFL membership, yeah.
That's fine. He probably deserves 200. He had bad luck with his ACL early in his career. But he cannot think that he still deserves a place in the 22 based on form, in my opinion. It's just impossible for him to think that.
He hasn't for a long time.
No. Meanwhile, we've got Fogarty, who can't break into the team, and when he is in the team is playing second fiddle to a bloke who plays exactly the same sort of game. We've got Benny Davis, who has played 2 games the whole time that he's been here. Who knows whether Ben Davis would be a good forward, Mac? We wouldn't know, would we?
He should. With Lynch had, he certainly should have been given a go. He should have been. There were thoughts he could be the replacement link man for Lynch, and the poor bugger can't prove it. But I noticed in the chat that somebody raised Benny Davis, and he said, he needs to work on some things. Was Nick's reply. Well, look, I feel very sorry for Benny Davis because he's had 2 games. One last year where I think it was against Hawthorn, I'm not sure, but he was out of his depth in that particular game, and he had one game. Round 1, actually. And I thought he wasn't too bad.
No, that's right, and then got dropped. And look, Shane McAdam has to work on a few things. Tyson Stengel has to work on a few things. Every kid in the team has to work on a few things. But he's not going to learn. He's not going to get any value about playing 10-minute a quarter scratch matches. Get him in the side. What is the value? You can't tell me that Tex is on there for leadership and experience, because half the time you see our blokes all leading to the same spot. Bloody Himmelberg and Walker and sometimes the Ruckman all going to the same spot. So if Tex had any bloody experience to show, he'd be getting them to separate. So we're not getting any value from Tex at all at the moment. I feel for Ben Davis, I really do.
Yeah, well, look, they just corrected me. It was against the Cats at Cardinia Park, which is not the place.
That was
for
his
anybody
first game. But his
Yeah.
second game was in round 1, like you said, and he didn't play too badly. No worse than McAdam's first game. And
No, not at all.
Look,
he should've got-
we'll delist Ben Davis, Mac, and you watch. He'll bob up as a delisted free agent on another list, and he'll get games. I could see him bobbing up in a team like Hawthorn or a team like Sydney, and being a really handy third tall option. It'll happen. I really feel for him. I think he's been hard done by at Adelaide. Who else? David McKay, a little under his career average with only 11 touches. Made
I
a couple
thought
of
his 11
blues.
touches weren't too bad today, actually.
Well, he made a couple of blues, but he tried really hard to make up for them. Certainly wasn't our worst, but as usual is the case with David McKay, he just does not get involved often enough.
Correct.
McAdam showed, flashes, and I think that's largely what we'll get from Shane McAdam, which isn't terrible. Kyle Hartigan was pretty average, got towed up along with Talia by Norton and the other tools down there. Looked all at sea, Hartigan, to be honest. Lockie Murphy, all effort, no impact, as is always the case with Lockie Murphy. Never doubt his endeavour, but it just doesn't impact the game enough for mine.
What really shits me is that it's standard for him. He misses a set shot from 25, 30 metres out straight in front every week.
Yeah. And, when you're having that low amount of impact on the game, and Death's just pointed out in the chat that we're mathematically out of finals, which is a shock to everyone. Then I've forgotten what I was saying. Anyway, Lockie Scholl's looking a bit tired. Too light for mine.
He didn't even. Yeah, I think
he's very light, Mac.
He was pretty good up until today, but I didn't think he was up to it today.
That's what I was going to say on Hartigan. Surely Geordie Butts gets a run. Please, can we give Geordie Butts a run this season? Can we do that? What do you reckon?
Well,
Geordie Butts would be nice.
The opportunity is there to put him in.
With Andy McPherson going down and Doody out for the season, Hamill probably another 1 or 2 away. The Cubs getting a bit bare down back, unfortunately. So I would imagine that we might see Chase Jones come back in off a half back, but I wouldn't mind seeing Geordie Butts come in as well. Jake Kelly will get picked next week, but by God, he'd be very disappointed with that game. Very disappointed with that game.
Well, but probably not as much as me. I thought he was shocking, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, his judgment was off. He made some poor skill errors. He made some poor decisions. His opponent got goals, and just a forgettable game by Jake. The problem with Jake as well is that when we don't have Duday, we need Jake to be that intercepting third tall down back, and you'll notice he just doesn't anticipate. He'll tend to gravitate to the pack rather than try to cut across the front. And it's something that we really lack when, we lost it with Lever, and then Duday came along and he provided it as well. Without being stupid, Andy Otten, when he was playing, used to provide that for us as well. But it's something that we really lack, and that needs to be part of Jake's repertoire, and unfortunately it's not.
Anybody who is the interceptor, I guess is what they're called, they generally float across, as you say, from the side, coming across the side in the front of the pack. And that's certainly not how he plays, no.
No. We've talked about Walker. Himmelberg tried, but it was a slight lesser game than previous couple of weeks, but probably can be forgiven given we were dominated in the midfield. Fisher McAsey unsighted, struggling to make any impact at all. Mac.
Nearly took a nice mark, and he did a nice tackle. I can't remember much about his game.
Yeah. We've got to remember with Fish that he's just a kid. He's 18 or 19. He's just a kid. He's a young key position player. I think the jury's still out about whether he's a forward or a back.
I genuinely think he can play either. But when you're playing in a team of spuds like us at the moment, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, Surfs Oz in the chat says he's worried about McCasey. I'm not worried about McCasey at all. I just think he's a kid. He's just a kid.
Yeah, I agree.
He's not in the same physical class as, say, the King brothers from last year. He's almost a little undersized, Macca, which worries me just a little bit. I'd like him to be another couple of centimetres tall. But his hands are good and he reads the play well, and I think he's got a good football brain. I think he just needs some physical conditioning.
Yeah, just a little bit of time, a little bit of more body.
Yeah.
He'll be all right long term.
Yeah. And Talia had a forgettable day too, along with Hardigan on Norton. They got cleaned up down back, but as we mentioned, Bulldogs getting a lot of good service. So, not a lot else to say, Macca. It's one of those situations where it was very easy. We got done in the midfield. We got absolutely torched in the midfield. It exposed our weaknesses down back, and I feel like we're a bit unbalanced up forward, and that didn't help when we were already getting fairly bad service from the midfield.
No, an interesting thing is, just say, for example, if we gave them our midfield and we took their midfield, you would reverse the result of the game. Well, no doubt.
Norton doesn't kick a bag with our midfield. They don't get anywhere near the service. They don't. We scored a couple of breakaway goals as well, but there was no effort by us to close up the corridor, shut down their run, get back behind the ball. There was none of that. Now you can put that down to coaching and all that, but I still think it's just plain and simple. It's fitness. I think our whole situation comes down to two factors, Mac. One is the inexperience and lack of physical development of our juniors. And the second thing is that our seniors have just forgotten how to play football.
Yeah, you can't argue with any of that, really, because our seniors aren't playing good footy, and the whole side conks out after about 2 quarters. So you can't argue with what you say.
No. Look, we could probably just finish off the podcast today just with a little bit of a discussion on our situation in terms of our list, given we've got a couple of minutes. The biggest worry, I think, for me, Macca, is the failure in the 2019 draft. Jones and McHenry, they've really got to perform.
That's the 2018 draft.
18 draft, sorry.
We blew it. Absolutely blew it. We started in that particular draft ahead of Port Adelaide with every pick, and we did nothing, and we just sat there with our picks. And Port Adelaide went out there, and I recently read history or a litany of all the moves that they made to get to where they then, with their 3 picks, got themselves ahead of us in every pick, and we could have and should have been able to work really hard to get Rosie, for example. I can't believe we didn't get it work harder to get ourselves in a position to get at least him. McHenry, I just can't believe we took McHenry at the position that we did.
Yeah, McHenry's the one, I think. McHenry's the one that puzzles me. I can understand Jones. I mean, his numbers in the carnival were pretty good. He looked a little bit undersized, but he was a real magnet and a real bull at the ball. And in some ways, Macca, he looked like a young Dangerfield the way he played. I looked at a little bit of that footage, and he straight lines the ball and all the rest of it. But McHenry is the one. I do not understand the thinking of choosing a bloke who is at best going to be a small forward, and a great lad, got a great attitude by all accounts, tries really hard. You can see that he tries really hard. But for a pick that high, you're looking for something a bit more. McHenry's a pick that you would take in the 3rd round, I would have thought.
Well, at very best late second round, but not where we took him. For God's sake, not before a Durs, and not and
No.
I mean Port Adelaide, they took players either better than they really should have been. Yeah. Sorry, they either got bargains or at least got their value. Whereas I don't believe we got anywhere near our value for what should have been good draft picks.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We blew it in that particular draft, and that sort of sets the scene.
Yeah, 100% agree, Mac. I'm just looking at last year's draft. Port, at the 2000 let's look at the 2018 draft real quick. Port took Rosie at 5. We've taken Jones at 9. Port have taken Zach Butters at 12. So Butters was there at 9. Along with Jai Caldwell, who hasn't done a huge amount. Jack Haley was at 14. Jordan Clark was at 15. We took McHenry at 16, with Dersma still there.
Yep.
Port have taken. Will Hammer was a good get at 30. I think he was a good get at 30, but the other one that Port got in that draft.
Butters. Well, he was certainly in the first 18.
Oh, that's right. He went at 12. Yeah. He went at 12. So Butters was there when Jones was there, obviously. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, Macca. A beautiful thing. But I would have liked to have had Haitley, to be honest with you. If we, he was probably the one. Nick Valenti was another one. Luke Valenti that went to Freo.
Yeah, although I know she hasn't got a game there yet, so he had a little bit of a knock on him through. He wasn't very quick. But coming back to Haitley, I think this is the year. GWS are having salary cap problems, and they've got to try and get players. They're going to probably, to keep the players they want to keep, they're going to have to move players on. And this is one that I think that Adelaide should begin moving on very quickly to try and get Haitley.
Yeah. The one that I really like that Port picked up last year is Mitch Georgiadis. I think he's going to be a champ.
I think he is too. Not only can he get off the ground, if you look at the length of his arms, I mean, I've seen apes with shorter arms than his. Seriously, they are long. When he puts his arms up to take an overhead mark, they are a long way up in the air. And he's got beautiful judgment.
He's a steal late in the first round. They didn't even use their first pick with him, but by God, I mean, when you look at the difference between Mitch and Fisher Mackesy, you'd almost think Georgiadis would have been worth a pick at 6.
Yeah, not wrong.
But, like I said, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Look, at the end of the day, I worry about the McHenry pick. I'm a little bit worried about the Chase Jones pick, but I think Chase might have walked into a midfield that was in tatters, and a bit like Harry Schoenberg, if you could put those kids into a functional midfield and just give them minutes with experience around them, valuable experience around them, they develop quite nicely. But we're relying on these kids too much to actually be linchpins rather than just be support players. Yeah,
I think that what's his name? Schoenberg, is it?
Schoenberg.
Yeah. What I do like about the kid, he's not getting handouts from any of the other players. He's just reading the play and working and getting his own ball. So, you say, that normally they do rely on handouts from the senior players, but this kid gets his own ball.
Yeah. J-Mac's asking in chat, do I trust Haggis and Reid? Look, I think I said a couple of weeks ago.
I don't trust Reid.
Well, I think I said a couple of weeks ago, Mac, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I feel like Haggis sometimes he's very good in the lower picks, but I feel like he uses the same judgment sometimes on the higher picks. I think he speculates a bit, and let's be honest, Duday was speculative, and that worked out fine, so you can't knock him for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think sometimes some of our picks have been a little bit cute. Bellucci, I thought, was a little bit cute and quite speculative. McHenry clearly was, and Jones possibly was as well, given his size. So I just like Haggis to be a little bit more straight down the line in terms of
that's fair comment. That is fair comment.
But I still think he's a very good. I think he's a very good spotter of talent, and I think his record stands up very, very well over the long term across entire drafts. I just sometimes at the top end, like Fisher Mackesy again, was an interesting pick for us given where our needs were, and to me that comes down to two things: either list management is not analysing the list correctly, or our strategy is a bit off. Because I must admit, I was surprised that we took Mackesy at 6 last year, and that's not a knock against it's not a knock against Mackesy. Sorry to cut you off, but there was a couple after that I think we could have picked up.
Yeah, Ogilvy has turned up some good ones, like Dangerfield, for example, was one that he took that others wouldn't have taken.
Yeah,
and as we know, he's one of the very best players in the competition. So he gets it right occasionally, but I think you're right. I think at the moment in the position we've got, he's just got to get good players and no fancy stuff, just pick the best. But he does have the handicap, of course, this year because there's no Victorian football being played. So
no, but they would have been tracking. They would have been tracking these guys for 36 months, Mac.
They will, but there's a year of football where some players will develop and go from being not considered to being a must, and others will go from looking like a must to probably passing by.
Yeah.
It's a really important year in their development.
Look, the second half of the question, J-Mac, I don't like the way Reed's handled our list. Some of the contracts that have been dished out have been ridiculous, and I think there's been some. I mean, look. There should have been a point, Macca, during 2018 at least, but definitely during last year, where the club thought, you know what, this squad is done. It's not going to get any further. We need to turn it over, and the best time to turn over a squad is when these players have still got a bit of trade value. Now you look at what we got rid of. We got rid of Huey Greenwood, Alex Keith, and Eddie Betts. Got rid of Charlie Cameron and Mitch McGovern the previous year. Now, none of those players, with the possible exception of Keith, were really what I would have called value on the trade table. I mean, when you have a look at the output that Greenwood's giving Gold Coast now, they got him for an absolute steal.
Well, that's the type of thing I'm talking about not getting true value.
The thing of it is, we underrated. See, this is where I think that our rating of our list was flawed, because it showed by how Rashudo had a spit at Greenwood. But with
Greenwood though, they did Gold Coast. They were using the threat of the PSD.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you give Greenwood a contract? I don't think. See.
Oh, we should have. No argument. We should have.
See, in my opinion, if you've got to take a 5-year view on a new list, because we hadn't bottomed out, so we didn't have that constant stream of high draft picks coming through. So it was always going to be a case that when the 2017 Grand Final squad hit the cliff, which we clearly did, through 2018, at that point, if I was list management committee at that point, I'd go, right, who's got value, because we've got to clear this out right now. And blokes like Luke Brown, Brodie Smith, Rory Laird, those sorts of blokes, who at that stage held plenty of value on the trade table, would have got us some decent currency at draft. But what we did, what we've done is we've rung the squad to death we've overrated certain players, giving Rory Sloane 5 years when he's had a history of foot problems and has shown to be vulnerable under a tag. And really, Rory Sloane, as much as I love him as a player, in terms of a heart and soul player, since Danger's left, Sloane has been shown to be not up to being the main man in the midfield. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with you. He's definitely not a main man.
So why are you giving him 5 years? If he gets a 3-year deal from St Kilda to go back home and we get a bloody first-round compo out of it, Rory, you've been a great servant for the club. We wish you well. I mean, you've got to be that objective when you're talking about list management. There's not that many good players in the talent pool in this country. With 18 teams, there's not enough players to be able to gift spots in your squad. And we've gifted Rory 5 years. He's had a history of plantar fascia injuries. He's got shoulder problems. He's getting a bit older. And he doesn't deal with a tag. So what is that the player that you give 5 years to?
No, definitely not.
You know, we've got the Crouch boys. Brad Crouch probably still has a little bit of value at trade, but certainly not as much as he would have last year. You know, I would have been gung-ho on getting Brad Crouch out of the club last year. We had situation previously with Josh Jenkins where he could have gone to Brisbane 2 years ago at the height of his powers.
Oh, that's the one that really hurts, yeah.
At the height of his powers. And now, 2 years later, less than 2 years later, Macca, we're paying his salary at Geelong. He can't even get a run.
Would have got a first rounder for him in 2018.
And that's not hindsight talking, because we've been saying that about Jenkins. And people say, oh, yeah, he kicked 60 goals, la, 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 la. He kicked 60 goals as a bloody small forward in a team that was...
Exactly.
In a team where we were killing it off half-back and getting it over the top. And as soon as Josh had to play one-on-one offence, he wasn't up to it. Simple as that. And everyone with half a football brain could see that. So
what you're really saying, Fane, when you go through it, is our list management's been shocking.
I don't think it's been proactive, Mac. I think there was a point during 2018...
2018 was the year.
Where the list management committee, and with all the kerfuffle about the camp and everything... Look, let's look at it objectively. Let's chuck all the shit about the camp aside and let's look at it objectively. After 2017, the club decided, rightly or wrongly, that the squad was mentally weak. Correct? And as a consequence, they decided to do this camp thing. Now, they messed that up completely. But the premise, the reason why they did that was because they thought the squad was mentally weak. And if you recall, during plenty of Tuesday Night Live shows with you, me, Peter J, we all said the same thing. That in big games, under conditions where we had to win, more often than not, this squad was found wanting.
Yep.
I could name you half a dozen games, and we've gone through it 1,000 times. So, yes, we had a good squad. The coaching staff and the club thought that they were mentally weak already, so they saw a major flaw. And then, when things started to kick up about the camp, it was obvious, rightly or wrongly, that what the club did in terms of trying to get those players to get more mentally tough didn't work. The players rebelled, and at that point, Macca, whether you agree with the camp or not, and you know where I stand on the camp, whether you agree with it or not, at that point the club should have gone, you know what, fuck it, you guys, if you're not going to buy in, you're out. We're going to trade you. That's when it should have happened.
It is that simple, yep.
That's when it should have happened. Irrespective of what you think about the camp and the methodology behind the camp, the reason was that the players were mentally weak. And they were shown after that, with all the whinging and carrying on and leaks to the press and all the rest of it, that they were mentally weak. They've shown this year that they are mentally weak. Our senior players who are still in this team are mentally weak. They are getting brushed aside by players of similar experience. They are mentally weak. They couldn't show up from a pre-season with any sort of fitness at all. Mentally weak. So the club was not wrong about identifying that this team, this squad, was mentally weak. So trade them. Well, they've still got bloody value, because now we've got all these hacks on our side that we've kept on our list for 2 years too long who aren't worth a pinch of shit. And we've gotten rid of good players like Hugh Greenwood, Jared Lyons, all the rest of it, who cost half the price and will give you double the value.
Well, so, no argument from me. And
clear failure of our list management.
Well, and that's why I say, for me, my main fear is that the list management people will mess it up at draft time, because we really have got the strongest hand that we've ever had, never ever gone to a draft with. We'll never go to a draft, hopefully, we'll never go to a draft with a stronger list and stronger hand than what we've got this time. And they really do. And I know it's going to be harder because of the fact that the Victorian underrating competition hasn't been in existence. But as you said,
they should have been tracking that for 3 years, Mac. I think you might have just dropped out there, mate. Back with us? You might have to just log back out and log in again. There you
go. Who, me?
Yeah, you're right now. You just you had a bit of a...
oh, okay. But my point is, I do not trust them to do the right thing. And I really think, there should be a lot of changes at the top. We should be getting rid of Chapman. We should be getting rid of the deputy chair. We should be getting rid of. We should be banning Roo from making any decisions or appointments to senior positions, things like that. And we should be kicking Reid out, putting somebody in there that really knows something about list management. And I think then we might become a good football club.
But this club has got a history of getting rid of the wrong people. We got rid of Alan Stewart a couple of years ago. Now, Stewie was a fantastic spotter of talent and nurturer of talent.
Great judge.
And he got frozen out of list management because he made a call on Jenkins that people didn't, that the rest of the committee didn't like.
He wanted to trade him.
Yeah.
And he was right.
But what happened after that, he stopped getting invited to list management meetings.
Yep.
And so he left. Now, Peter Jonas was another one that has been lost to the club. Peter Jonas was fantastic in terms of player development and talent spotting, all the rest of it. Got the bloke that ended up going with Franco to Queensland, was it Kaisler?
Yeah.
Fantastic development of players. We have gotten rid of so many, or lost so much intellectual property from our club, and it's through this nepotism of a few and this unwillingness to make hard decisions on club favourites. Jeremiah asked where's Stuart now. I think he's retired, mate, because he was getting on a bit, but he would have, as a consultant, he would have been fantastic. Anyway, look, Matt, we could go another half an hour on this one, and I promised you that we wouldn't.
And we've blown it. We've got to keep this to an hour. We've killed it.
But everyone, keep going in the chat. Don't forget the Discord for CrowCast is always open. You can always chat live in the Crows chat 24/7. Drop us a line on Twitter if you want to engage in any of this conversation. Thanks to everyone who's joined us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Thanks to everyone who's got on chat tonight. Notable exception, Vardy Magic. Vardy will listen to this. Macca. And I'm just calling him out right now. Where the hell are you, mate? Where the hell are you? You can't just miss a week just because we got towed up. You got to show up. Anyway. All right, Mac. Whoops. That's it. G'day to Nikki, who had the week off this week. Thanks, Macca, for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday for another weekend wrap. Until then, take care, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, not all.